Hi friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to discuss experiential curriculum. So let us see what is an experiential curriculum, what are its features, principles, what are the characteristics of an experiential classroom, etc. in this presentation. So first of all, let us see the meaning. Learning through experience. That's the simple meaning of experiential learning. So, learning through experience. Experiential learning is a process that includes a reflection on the process of completing work and how the process was completed. So, that's the essence of an experiential learning. It's a process which includes completion of a work and reflection on the basis of that completed work regarding how the process was completed or how the work was completed. So that's the cream of experiential learning, and naturally it has real life application also because it derives from, rooted in real life application or real life situation. So there are certain principles of experiential learning. Let us see. The first principle is that the classroom need to be highly engaging. So the engaging environment, classroom, the nature of the classroom should be like a highly engaging environment that emphasize collaboration and cooperation. So these two processes are highly significant in the case of experiential learning. There shall be collaboration and cooperation between learners. And this collaboration and cooperation shall be achieved by a semi-structured classroom. So in a structured classroom or a teacher dominant classroom or another type of classrooms, so there will be less scope for this cooperation and collaboration. So in order to enhance the chance for collaboration and cooperation, the classroom structure shall be of more flexible or semi-structured in nature, and thereby enhancing engaging environment. The classroom as an engaging environment, or where only partial incorporation or a partial structuring is there, so that students get more freedom. So that is the first principle. Classroom should be like an engaging environment for learners in order to enhance collaboration and cooperation. So another principle regarding reflection and critical analysis. Learning occurs when specific experiences are accompanied by a reflection and critical analysis. So that's the second principle regarding experiential learning. Reflection and critical analysis, it should follow the specific experiences. So in experiential learning, they focus on specific experiences. That is very important, not any experience. Specific experiences, the experiences or activities that are designed for specific purpose. So while completing that experience, so experienced that activity followed by reflection and critical analysis. So these two activities, these two processes of reflection and critical analysis help students to synthesize the information they gathered through the experience. So that's the second principle. Gathering necessary information or synthesize necessary information after gathering it from the experience on the basis of two processes, reflection and critical analysis. And the third principle, asking questions. Students require to ask questions in order to investigate on their own and require students to be engaged intellectually, socially, emotionally, and physically if needed. So that's the third principle of experiential learning. Students require to ask questions or seek information on their own and require to be engaged. Depending on the nature of experience, they might have to be engaged intellectually or socially or emotionally or physically. So, which type of intervention require shall be depending on the nature of the experience. So, what type of experience is given to them, and depending on the nature of experience, they have to seek for information or ask questions of their own to get more information about the experience or the activity. So the next principle is building of relationships. So experience is personalized to the student and often involves the development of a relationship between other students. That's another important principle. We already told about cooperation and collaboration. So, in that sense, also building or developing a relationship between other students is highly essential. That's an important principle. They have to build a relation with other students in order to get more information or identify answering some questions they raised on the basis of the experience that they have. Next principle is regarding learn from their failures. So it so happened that all our experiments may not be end up as a success. So students will get an opportunity to learn from their failures also. A failed experiment or a failed activity. So there can be so many things we can learn from a failure. Why? What are the reasons for? What caused this failure? So they have to learn from their failures also. That's another principle. And the role of instructor in this experiential learning, the role of instructor is to create an appropriate set. So that's the role of instructor. Instructor or the teacher should create an appropriate set for this experiential learning of boundaries and a classroom with enough structure to facilitate learning and enough flexibility to encourage engagement. So that's the role of the teacher, to create appropriate classroom environment with minimum level of or required level of structuring and providing adequate facilities. So these are the various principles of experiential learning. So there is a specific approach suggested for experiential learning. So it's a 5-step process. So the steps include completion, reflection, discussion, establishment, and application. So let us see each one of the 5 steps approach. The completing the activity itself, that's the first step. So in experiential learning, it is the most fundamental or the beginning step or initial step is that to completion of the activity. So or the experience, the activity here stands for experience. So the learners have to complete the activity or the experience. So as a first step, so the learner is more responsible here. Learner is not passive. So what the learner should do at first is to complete the assignments and experience designed by teacher. So we already told that teacher should provide appropriate classroom, appropriate activity, etc. So teacher shall design a specific experience and teacher provide specific assignments to learners. And the first step, the learner should complete the assignments and experiences. Then the second step, the student should reflect on what they did. So that's the second step. The reflection of students in the under principles we already discussed reflection and critical analysis. So this is the second step where students reflect on what they did. So they completed an assignment and they had an experience. So on the basis of that experience and experience based assessment, they did something. So what they actually did. So as a second step, they have to reflect upon what they have completed. They should share the result with their actions to others. That also can be done as a second step. They have to reflect upon what they did and to share their result with others and get reactions from others and learn from others. So it's an opportunity for mutual sharing. So reflection and sharing of experience. So that's the second step. Then as a third step, deep discussion. It's a step of in-depth discussion where students need to analyze what happened and connect their learning to previous and future lessons. So the direction of this discussion should be for a linking of the new knowledge with the previous knowledge as well as an extension towards further learning. So that's the third step in which students discuss it in more depth or more complexity by analyzing what happened and connect the learning with previous as well as future lessons. So that's the third step. And the fourth one, establishing the importance of what was learned, include and how it can apply in a real life context. That the fourth step where learners shall establish the importance of what they have learned. So that's the fourth step, identifying the significance of the learned material and try to apply from which all situations or which context we can apply this new knowledge. So seeking that or establishing that is considered as the fourth step in experiential learning. And as a fifth step, students need to apply what they have learned. So the actual application, that's contribute to the fifth step. So the 5 steps: completion of the activity, then reflection on the experience, what actually they experience by completing the assignments and activity, then discussion of results, sharing of results, then a further deeper discussion, establishing the importance and the areas where it has some significance or a connection with the previous or existing knowledge base, as well as in which all area this knowledge has influence in future lessons also can be established, and apply the knowledge, the new knowledge, in some real life situations. So these are the 5 steps proposed for an experiential curriculum. So the nature of an experiential classroom. So in a classroom, what shall be the nature of an experiential class and how it look like? So in order to consider an experiential class, similarly in the case of a normal classroom, the first step that we all are doing, assessment of students in class. So we are assessing students for sometimes for checking their previous knowledge. So similarly, the assessment of students in the class is the first activity. So in order to assess the audience, not only their previous knowledge base, they are diverse in order to identify their diversities. What are the different backgrounds from the learners are coming? What are the difference in their developmental level, their knowledge base? What are the different kinds of exposure they are having? And is there any difference in age level, etc. So such kind of a comprehensive assessment of students in the class is the first activity. Then design of activities, that's a most important aspect or backbone of the experiential curriculum is design of the activity, designed activities or tailored activities for a specific purpose. So activities shall be designed based on needs of learners. So there are certain criteria for designing activities. The first one is the activities shall be based on needs of the learners. We have already assessed the learners and identify what are their needs and interests. So it should be based on their needs. And the objectives should be directly linked to course objectives. So the objectives of the course objectives and these activities shall be linked properly. Then while designing activities, the teacher should consider the learning styles of learners. So there are different kinds of learning styles. So which are the preferable learning styles that should be considered, and the activities should be in accordance with the learning styles of the students in the class, as well as the developmental level of learners should be considered while designing activities. Then all topics may not be suitable for experiential learning. That's another aspect. We could not convert all topics in a course in the form of an experiential lesson. Then time requirement, that's another aspect should be considered for an experiential class. So this is time consuming, more time may be required to actualize an experiential class, so that we have to compensate it from other class or other topics, etc. So these are some uh, activities that should be considered while conducting an experiential learning classroom. So, what should be the learning activities that shall be? What should be the nature of learning activities in an experiential class? There can be diverse number of ways that students can be taught. So there are now so many variety of methods and variety of activities that can be given to learners. So that should be explored. So because we are already assessed students and identified their needs and interest, so now it is essential to choose appropriate learning activities in accordance with their interest and needs, learning styles, developmental level, etc. So, in elementary and middle schools, based on fun, the activities based on fun but engaging activities that still communicate important lessons. So, such kind of activities are preferable in elementary and middle school levels. The activities based on some fun, because it should sustain interest of learners. So, some fun should be there, but at the same time, that the element of fun make them engaged in the activity, and at the same time it communicate some important lessons. So that kind of activities shall be selected. Then instead of having students create models out of usually we suggest students to create models with some low cost or no cost materials or improvised aids, etc. Improvisation from waste products, etc., like toothpick or paper or something like that. So we have to substitute such things. Not to substitute such things, and in place of these materials, the teacher can suggest some other food items such as dessert or sweets, for instance, to make more delicious way of creating models. So create models using some food materials, especially some sweet food materials can be another interesting way of approaching learning activities. So such apart from the traditional way, there should be a new way of thinking for tailoring learning activities. Then a teacher, what should be the peculiarities of an experiential teacher? We already discussed that the teacher should design experiences. So the first activity, the first role a teacher has to play is to assess learners properly. So that's the first activity. So assessing the audience, and the assessment should be a comprehensive one, which should cover all essential elements regarding the learners. Then teacher have to take into account the learning styles of the students. That's another important activity that teacher has to do. Which learning style is more preferable for learners, that should be identified. Design lessons that appeal to diverse learning. That's another tedious task for teachers. So they are designing experiences, assignments, etc. So these shall be designed in accordance with the peculiarities of learners. Emphasis needs to be on creating lessons in which students get hands on with their materials. So the emphasis shall be given to such lessons in which they will the students will get an opportunity for hands-on experience. So some kind of concrete or real life exposure shall be there for the topic a teacher has selected for developing an experiential lesson. Get students out into environment whenever possible. That's another task the teacher should plan properly, that to bring them out of the classroom to real life situation or outside environment. So that's another important thing. So these are some duties or responsibilities of a teacher. It is the role to be performed by an experiential teacher should be a more complicated one than a traditional teacher. In traditional teaching, it is very easy. A teacher can go to class to lecture something, give some notes, some questions, etc. It is not like that. The teacher should assess properly, judge the capacities, abilities, and special abilities and inabilities, interest, needs, etc. of learners, and to design materials accordingly depending on the varied nature of learners, and to choose appropriate lessons which the topics which have influence in their life directly, and to provide them opportunities to get direct experience from the environment outside the classroom. So these are some activities, responsibilities to be performed by an experiential teacher. So this is all about the experiential curriculum, so in which we discussed about the meaning of what is an experiential curriculum. It's a learning from experience, direct experience, which are not incidental or informal, which are properly designed, tailored activities. And there are some 6 principles for experiential learning, and it's a 5-step approach also. And we already discussed how a learning process in an experiential classroom, the nature of activities, and the role of an experiential teacher. So that's the end for the day. Thanks for watching.